In the cool of the evening when everything is getting kind of groovy, I call you up and ask you if you'd like to go with me and see a movie. First you say no, you got some plans for the night, and then you stop and say, alright, love is kinda crazy with a spooky little girl like you. You always keep me guessing, I never seem to know what you are thinking. And if a fella looks at you, it's for sure your little eye will be a winking. I get confused cause I don't know where I stand, and then you smile and hold my hand. Love is kinda crazy with a spooky little girl like you. Spooky.
Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Everyday Telling Podcast. Today, again, I'm joined with our co-host, Jill Killington.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. It's good seeing you again.
Good seeing you again. How are you doing in the world?
I'm doing good in the world. I think I'm doing pretty okay right now. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. I've been getting over a cold since South by Southwest, so I've just been taking it easy and
No.
yeah,
Who got
catching
you
up on
sick?
all the things to be catching up on. So yeah, if I sound a little bit hoarse, that's why.
Yeah. How was South by Southwest?
Man, I'd never been before. It's an amazing festival.
Yeah. Was
Yeah,
it a party like we said last week?
Yeah, Austin's incredible. I was only there for the film section of it, but
Mhm.
the movies, I don't know, it's like such a love of film there. Like I saw 3 movies there. I saw uh my producing partner Nate Lee did a movie called Hail Mary that premiered there.
Mhm.
Uh that was received really well, and I don't know, the premiere for that was awesome. My friend Chris Kasich did a movie called Citizen Sleuth. That's a documentary that premiered there that did really well. And
Nice.
then we got to go to the premiere of John Wick 4 at
Ooh,
South
nice.
by, which was like it
It's
was like seeing Keanu Reeves in concert because he was there and presented the movie
yeah.
with Chad Stahelski. So it was like the two of them sat in the audience with a lot of the crew watching the movie, and like people kept on yelling like "Get up, Keanu!" and like
Yeah.
"We love you, Keanu!" And I was just like, "Be cool, guys. He's right there."
Right, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So is it not like, I would imagine it would be like, that's a disturbance in the theater. Like, we have the creators of the film here, but it's more like people are just stoked to watch the movie and have a good time.
Yeah, everybody is there like, it's true fans who stood in line and waited to go see it. And then yeah, we got to watch the movie. It's absolutely like maybe the best action movie ever made for my money.
Oh yeah, that's good. So you
Like,
liked, would you say you liked it more than the last three?
I mean, it's hard to say I want to go see it in the theater again
Yeah.
because I can't decide if I'm just biased because like literally watching the movie and being able to hear Keanu in the audience like kind of laughing and enjoying
Yeah.
his own movie.
That's
It's
so
like
bizarre.
it really is. It's like, watching the Rolling Stones with Mick Jagger next to you. It's like
Right.
too weird. But yeah, it's the stunts, the colors, the cinema, it's incredible. It's a really, really good movie.
Cool.
So that was South by Southwest was incredible. All the movies, I don't know, it's just a true love for filmmaking and
Hmm.
for interesting cinema. And Austin's awesome. I thought it was such a cool, creative festival. But yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Everybody in the
tell me,
industry's there.
I mean, it was really cool. Like I've never been to South by Southwest before. I was supposed to go in 2020, but obviously the
Right.
pandemic.
Hmm.
And then I haven't ever been to Sundance either. I've been to Cannes, but it's like this is like the coolest festival I know of in America. It's
Oh
so
yeah, no
fun.
doubt. Yeah. So it was I know I was gonna bring it up during the post-mortem part of this, but Lance Reddick passed away, sadly.
Yeah, he was still alive and well when we watched the movie, so there was no sad,
No
which I'm
way.
yeah, because we watched it on like the Monday before he passed. I think he passed on the Friday. So
Wow.
it's I when I saw that he'd passed, I was it was a surprise, obviously, but
Yeah.
I saw the movie without any sort of like, because
Right.
He was a lovely, lovely actor. I never knew him or anything. But...
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. They added the thing at the end of the movie, like in memory of Lance Reddick. So it's crazy that you saw a copy of it without that. Like,
I mean, again, it's not that big a difference. It's not like I saw The Shining with the original ending or
sure,
something.
right.
But...
But it's like this weird like moment in time. Like nobody else could see that. You know what I mean? That little blip of a time.
It's interesting. It's like we live in a time where it's very easy for them to just like add that file to like all the digital files around the world.
It's crazy.
But back in the day, they couldn't have done that. They would have had to like sit there and reprint the film or splice in a specific frame, like
yeah.
tribute to him. But
Well,
yeah, it's good that they did that because he obviously was such a huge part of the movie.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool though too that you got to see the movie. Like, no offense to Lance Reddick's passing and stuff, but you know, like I think he'd want everybody to have like such a good time with the movie and have fun with it and stuff. So it was, you know.
Again, it's like as a film fan, I'm glad I got to just really enjoy it because it really is like those kind of movies. Like, I don't even know what it would be like to have had The Dark Knight come out and Heath Ledger had lived. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
yeah.
it's just like those things color a movie in such a way, like it really changes your reception of it.
Big time,
you
yeah.
know?
It's like Earth 1 and Earth 2 and like DC universe stuff, you know.
Oh, you've gone over my head on that. I'm not. I lose track of all the Infinite Crises and
it's okay.
The Infinite Earths. Your girl doesn't keep up with that kind of stuff.
It's
I'm
only
a light DC fan or like a Bat fan. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I have a Superman with a mullet doll. I know about like the movie that was going to be made with Nicolas Cage, but yeah, I'm not so familiar with the different Earths.
Yeah, I think we talked about John Schnepp for like a hot second, whether it was like a personal conversation or not. But yeah, he was definitely in charge of that whole thing. And what a world that would have been to see a Tim Burton mulleted Superman.
I mean, again, like the way the world works out, it's in mysterious ways because they wasted a bunch of money making Wild Wild West. I think they canceled the Superman movie is like what the story is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Warner Brothers did that, and then what happened? Because they didn't have a Superman, they greenlit The Matrix, and that's the whole reason The Matrix was made. So I can't complain that there wasn't.
Right.
I mean, you know, Nicolas Cage just obviously he hasn't done a thing wrong with his career.
No, man, right. He figured it out, you know. He's had a lot of what you might call blunders, but if anything, other people call them great movies.
Mouth, those are not blunders. It's all part of his creative suit.
That's right. He's not paying off anything. It's just he loves doing movies, man.
You know this about me. I'm like an ardent defender of Nicolas Cage. Like the man can do no wrong by me.
Yeah.
Like 0, 0, 0.
Are you excited for Renfield?
I mean, anybody who tries to tell me that it's not going to be good, I'm just like,
shush.
I don't know what the movies you think I like, but this is like about made for me.
Yeah. It was right up your alley.
It's so like, okay, it's got Nicolas Cage. I also like Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah.
So we're 2 Nicks up right there. And then now we're getting to Bram Stoker. It's like,
right.
We're all good. I'm like super into that movie. I can't wait.
Yeah, I've seen since it's being done by Universal, I've seen pictures of Nick Cage like almost superimposed into Bela Lugosi's role into the movie, like in the cape and everything. I'm like, that's actually pretty fun. I love that.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to that aspect of technology when it's like, I've always had a dream of like, one day we can eventually put Charles Bronson in every movie. You know, it's like, we're there pretty much. Like on Instagram, I can have like, you know, Vin Diesel riding on my back.
Yeah.
I found a new filter the other day where it's like, I could have the George Romero beard and glasses.
Oh, I saw.
Like
You looked good. I liked it.
We're getting so uncanny so fast. It's really, really weird.
Yeah. No, gray works good on you. You just need that George Romero raspy voice.
It's a distinguished look to age into, you know? It's like, you have the giant glasses. I actually had a pair of those giant glasses at one time.
Oh, yeah, the bifocals.
Like, oh, those are nice George Romero's. And I just like quietly took them off. Because I got them quite a while ago. So now it would look like, hey, maybe these are camera glasses or they're VR of some sort. It's like, no, they're just Coke bottle.
Yeah, I love it.
Like, I have a very thick prescription. So.
Yeah. Nice. How was the movie you introduced you interviewed introduced the movie, right? Wasn't there a movie that you interviewed the director, or was it your friends that you produced?
No. That was here in Los Angeles as part of the American Cinematheque. I did a presentation for a Polish art house film called Fugue. and
Ah,
the director of it, I did a Q&A. Actually, I didn't introduce, I just did a Q&A afterwards. But yeah,
okay.
it's just like, interviewing filmmakers is fun. And then
Yeah.
I just like to talk to people, which is why we started talking.
Oh, very right. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you have such a different perspective on horror. Like it's like you've been telling me about all these like horror comic books and stuff that I don't even they're not on my radar at all. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like I this is what fascinates me about like everything everything every day is Halloween. It's just like okay, horror and Halloween is definitely like full on lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
it's so mainstream now to see people with like the 13-foot Home Depot skeleton.
As the
Like
front lawn pieces.
I'll drive like anywhere. I'll be driving in like South Georgia, like Texas, and you'll see somebody has left up their skeleton. And we're not even counting the ones that are like in the backyard or in the house or the boathouse that you can't see. I'm saying
Right.
like
Front
street
yard.
view, front yard, like apartment buildings. I've seen done it where it's like, wow, like every tenant or maybe one tenant or a group of tenants, how did this happen?
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I
Like
mean?
who
It's like
decided to put these out?
I'm
But
just saying, over the course of the past few years, like the world's gotten so goth and Halloweeny, and it's just like that's what I wanted to discuss with you today. It's just like,
yeah.
okay, you started this whole idea of every day is Halloween. As far as you said it, you began it with Bloody Disgusting back in the day.
Yeah, I started the Bloody Disgusting's first podcast when they were just like, we're trying to do this podcasting thing and we don't really know anything about it, but we're trying to get people on board. And I was just
Mhm.
like on the Bloody Disgusting forums as just a fan of horror movies. And my old coworker that worked at Suncoast Video, if you remember that, in the malls, he was the manager for that store, and so he was writing reviews for Bloody Disgusting and said, "Hey man, like I'm looking for co-hosts and people that know their shit." And I was like, "Yeah man, I'd love to do it with you." And then there was like another guy that was local in Orlando. The three of us did it. And it was cool. It was for a couple of years, we just did the Bloody Disgusting podcast. And then there was a time where I think Bloody Disgusting went dark. I think they were trying to restructure stuff. So in that time, I was like, well, I still, back whenever we used to get screener copies of DVDs and movies, there was no streaming
Mhm.
services. I was like, I really still want to get my, free DVDs and movies. Like that was like, because there was no way to watch independent horror, right? Like it was whatever was on TV, what was ever on HBO. Before streaming, you had to just get those like straight to DVD horror movies, and that cost you.
I was not a huge horror fan during that time. Like Eli Roth and torture porn and even the Saws are not my super jam.
Yeah,
Like
I get that.
I- it's just interesting to me where it's like there's a certain point where I'm like, if the production values aren't there, if like the story's kind of meh, if like the actors are like porno level,
Yeah.
I I tune out. But it's again, that's what's fascinating to me about horror is like a lot of people will like look right past all that and it's like
Mhm.
premise only or just like certain blood effects or like whatever fear is being tapped into for that person is like what matters more than the actual filmmaking.
Oh
And
yeah.
so like you know what I mean? Like little things like that's what fascinates me about the horror genre is it's like so um visceral or
Robust.
primal
Oh yeah,
for
very very visceral.
you know what I mean? It's like it really is like who would think like for how bad the Halloween series was for so many years,
hmm
who would think that like they would get like a prestige reboot and then everything would be rebooted right now? It's just like it's a really interesting time
Yeah, we went
that like
from
Scream is so huge again, it's
yeah
it's really
the producer of Halloween, I think Avi Ackert, I think his name is. Um, yeah, he was
oh,
based
no, it's not Avi Arad, but who did you say?
Avi Ack. Is that? I think you got it right.
No, Avi Arad is like a Marvel like he produced a lot of the
You're right. I think it's
the
a
Sony
cod. I think a cod is Halloween.
No, it's God, we could really just go on the internet. But yeah,
Right.
the
It's fine.
Mustafa, is it? It's
Yes.
something
Yes. He.
Mustafa,
So yeah, he's like the one consistent thing with all the Halloweens, right? Because he's had the
right.
the
He retained the financial rights. Again, this is like what's interesting to me is somebody who's like navigating the world of indie horror films. It's like, okay, where is your money coming from? What is your business model? Are you just trying to churn out and make more movies? Is
yeah.
this like you know what I mean, like it's like parsing out like okay, what's your overall goal, and then like your goal with filmmaking, it's like how achievable is that at like the budget that you have, like with the time that you have, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
there's it's such an equation to make a good movie, and like you need to make sure you're I don't know, checking your math and
Yeah.
like
Uh,
adding the right components to make something work, you know.
well, it's
So
funny.
again,
Like Blumhouse, they pulled in Ryan Rotten, who used to be part of one of the websites, Dread Central or one of those. He was a
a lot of websites, yeah.
yeah, and so like you notice that like okay, so Blumhouse is getting the the Halloween thing, and then they're bringing in like Ryan and stuff, and like Ryan's there to just be the voice of the fandom, right? Like he's there, he's been on the ground floor for the websites like Bloody Disgusting and stuff like that. So they want that kind of voice in there, like okay, how do we not screw this up, right? Like working with the writers, working with the producers, and it's just interesting how like yeah, it used to just be like a thing where you'd say, all right, get some no name director. We're gonna direct Halloween 7, like whatever. And now it's like, no, like there's too much money in
Yeah,
it.
we live in back then, like you kind of sold back then they sold movies just sort of based on a poster or another sequel, like but once the internet reviews started coming out, once like being a critic became everybody's pastime on the internet
Hmm.
suddenly, it's like you really do need somebody who helps sort of frame against criticism, or find an angle, or like protect the fan service. I don't know, there's just
Yeah.
like a whole bunch of like trying to understand the hierarchy of needs of making movies is like a really fascinating thing, because I'll be like, okay, these people are just trying to profit off of the IP,
Hmm.
and it's like I'm a fan of the IP and I'm part of the profiting off of this, but I know I'm doing something that's against the IP.
Yeah.
How do I balance that with like me keeping my job, me keeping my mouth shut, and keeping
Right.
everybody happy?
Yep.
But at the same time, I know something's wrong. It's just like it's interesting because you start to it's a business,
It
it's
is.
like making a movie is an actual business.
Yeah.
And I'm in the movie business and you just have to be
You're still
careful who you
learning,
get into it. Well, it's like you there's so many cooks in the kitchen. You have to like, okay, like what restaurant is this?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where am I at right now? What part of town is this? Um,
It's but yeah, that's go on. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
interrupted
I was
you.
just saying. So yeah. So I wanted to keep getting those movies because to me, like that's what I loved. I love the big, huge franchise and stuff like that. But I love seeing these one-off movies that these really cool directors were doing that reminded me of like the Giallo stuff from Italy and these horror movies that you had to like really look out for. So these directors were making them, but nobody was watching them unless you were going to like at that time, unless you were going to Redbox. And you would that was kind of like the way to get these kind of like $20 to $35 horror movies on disc was to get them from a
Sure.
Redbox or something. And then it wasn't until Netflix started coming around that it was like, oh, there's all this entertainment, all this content that we can pull from and, kind of build out our libraries and stuff. And you see how that's taken time and spread out so many different streaming services. And so I just started every day as Halloween because I was like, I don't have time to wait around for Bloody Disgusting to figure out their next move. So I just did my own thing. And within that time, I started making a website because I was like, I'll just do my own Bloody Disgusting, right? And I was noticing that websites were kind of on the out when it came to horror, like not just that, but just entertain, like in general, right? Like Bloody Disgusting's still around because it has such a large footprint. Even if Dread Central can't stick around, most people are on social media. Most people are just going to go right to Instagram. They want to see that quick reel, the funny thing they watch. Same thing with TikTok. Same thing with all these little things. And nobody's going to like the website anymore to check out the thing. So that's just kind of what it. So I kind of like I built this whole website out and I kind of backed away. I went, you know what? I think this is just a lot of time and energy that is not going to pay off in the long run. That I need to just devote to said podcast and to said, like where the next thing is moving. So for me, that was Twitch. I saw that, you could go live right there. You could do anything from like what we're doing now, which is just, a conversation to mostly what people are doing video games. But I think Twitch is so saturated with video games that they're looking for any other kind of market, artists, people make, cooking, like news updates and stuff like that. So it's always good to have your eye on the other stuff of what's going on, and it's kind of worked out,
So what is your main interest in horror movies? Like what do you have goals with it specifically, or you just enjoy watching and reviewing and talking about them, or what's your deal? I don't know exactly.
I think I've always just liked spooky stuff. When it comes down to it, I really like the macabre, and it was like I kind of got the horror guy nickname from like kids in high school who were just like, hey, horror guy, tell me about that new movie that came out. And then I would just kind of tell them about it, and then it's kind of stuck. So I was like, I don't want to abandon this.
How did you get your name, the horror guy? Yeah, that's
It-
like a
yeah,
you know
just kids by the vending machine at school would just say, "Hey, horror guy, I saw that new Scream movie. It was dope." Oh, cool. I'm glad you liked it, man. Like, I didn't make it, but neat. Like, if people just came to me for horror stuff. And it was funny because I was kind of like an anime nerd. Like, I like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that in high school. And it was just like, but because I had this, like, my uncle got me into it really young. He gave me an old white box when I was in Pittsburgh when my grandfather died. And to cheer me up, he goes, "Take these home with you back from Pittsburgh when you go back to Orlando." And in the box, it was VHS tapes that were all, they weren't like popular horror movies. It was like Full Moon Production stuff. So like Pumpkinhead, the Puppet Master movies, a lot of Herschel Gordon Lewis. Like,
yeah, like real creature effectsy kind of stuff.
Yeah, like a lot more monsters and creatures. And I just, something called to me with it. Like, I just thought the makeup effects were cool. It was like stuff I'd never really gotten a chance to sit down and watch. And I was just like, oh, this is such a cool, like, how much more of this is there? And then you go to Fangoria and you see that there's so much more out there. And it was just like, I have to watch every one of these. Like, I have to find all these movies. And then with that just came, more movies coming out. And then I was just like, with everything that was within my life that kind of kept coming up over and over, I was like, why abandon this, right? Why drop it and just move on to something else? Like, I've kind of kept building and building and building and building. So now that I'm at this point, I've, worked with different companies and, I have like the Mutants and Monsters community going right now. And it's just like, just keep it going, right? Like, bring more people in. And that's what I love most about it, is just having like you join and having like everybody from Mutants and Monsters that are like, they might not be super into monsters and stuff, but like one or two things have pulled them in and they like it and they want to talk about it. So it's kind of like building a little community of just cool, spooky people.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what's fascinating to me. It's like, I remember I would go to like, I don't know, like they had sci-fi and horror cons I'd go to when I was like a little kid in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like, I'd always like enjoy looking at the stuff and then like sort of hit like a weird section of the con that was like porno or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait, what is this that like all the comic book places have like the seedy side? But I guess that was just the way everything worked back then. It was like
Right.
video stores would have the 18 and up. It's like, hey, here's the like top shelf product. And it's like in the back we have the money makers. And that was like the weird impression I got at every like mom and pop video store and at like every con.
Yeah.
And then like, slowly over the past like, it has to be like really the difference is American Horror Story and stuff. It's just like over the course of time, I stopped being one of the only girls, or like, it suddenly like now I go to like Monsterpalooza or any like when I started going to Comic-Con in like in the 2000s, and it was just like there was not really many girls,
Yeah.
and there wasn't even very much cosplay. And it's like just seeing Twilight come out and then like it just seeing how horror has become so mainstream.
Yeah.
And a true lifestyle now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really fascinating to me.
Oh yeah, like a lot of these girls, they now have the what's the big Amish witch hat that they wear around and stuff. Like, it's just like it's lifestyle now.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had big witch hats, but again, it's like I'm a natural born witch or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's one of those.
like everybody always asks me, "What do you dress up as a witch?" I was like, "I guess I am."
Yeah, I guess I'm your witch.
Well, now in my life, I'm like, if I were to introduce myself to somebody in 1700s, it's like everything about me is like, yeah, you write for a living, aka spells.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I have but potions and tonics and like, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
like everything I do is like basically witchcraft.
I
It's
love
like,
it.
but I'm just saying, it's like it's interesting to see how like the trajectory of all these things go.
Yeah.
And it's like right now, between like horror dominating the box office as far as like profitability, and then just the sheer popularity. It's like I literally like will meet horror fans and be like, oh wow, like I like when I was at South by, my good friend who directed Citizen Sleuth, his brother's a dentist,
Mm-hmm.
and his brother was telling me he collects Mondo and like all these like waxworks, like horror records, like that's his big passion.
Yeah.
And he's like a dentist in Cleveland. Or it's like when I was visiting Orlando last,
Mm-hmm.
I ran into some neighbors across the street from my dad. Like it was like a whole family gathering, and this couple was wearing like, the guy was wearing a Night of the Creeps shirt, and the girl was wearing like I forget, it was a black metal band. But it's just
Wow.
like, okay, you guys are horror kids. I get it.
Yeah,
that's
like
fine,
yeah, the fact that your dad living in sunny Florida, like you just come down and across the street, you already have like they live fans. Like, what the fuck?
Saying it's like that's what's so fascinating. It's like, okay, like going to Gods and Monsters. It's like that is one of like seriously like one of the coolest, most dedicated like horror and sci-fi kind of places I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And it's like in the middle of the strip mall in Orlando. And it's like, I don't know, it's just like things are changing so quickly. And it's
Huge.
fascinating for me to go, like I live in LA, which is like supposedly like one of the weird people capitals of the world.
Right.
But it's
You're
like I
used
go
to
to
it, right?
Orlando, but I go to Orlando and I see girls like walking around in Fox cosplay, like as a lifestyle.
Right.
And I'm like, and again, I'm using the label girl. I probably should not even be using that label, but I'm just saying it's like I'm
Sure.
seeing
Right.
people, young people who have chosen a lifestyle as a anime fox,
Hmm.
and their employment's allowing it. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like
I
their
think it's,
parents, you know what I mean? Like when Bronies first came out, that was so like,
yeah.
wow, we're talking about that in public now. That's interesting.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I think it's because it's, I think we come from a generation where, Tipper Gore and all that stuff. Like, it was just so like, you have to stop having fun and being happy and get a job and drop all your kid stuff. Like, you need to grow up. The 80s is so like, what are you going to do with your life? Like, one of those commercials, like,
do wonder, like, it's like when everybody's complaining right now about the newest phase of Marvel, and I'm just like, well, maybe as adult people, we don't need this many Quantumanias.
right.
Like, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe we've hit peak of like how much Ant-Man we need to consume as a nation and as a world.
Yeah.
And we look on to other more pressing matters. Because like for me, what I like about horror is it's like so elemental. It's like it really like the end question of a horror movie is like how do you survive the situation? Like whether
Hmm.
it's Michael Myers, like Anthony Perkins, like a ghost, an alien, whatever the situation is, how do you survive this? It's like it's universally relatable.
Hmm.
It's like the through line is so simple, and he's like you can do anything else you want with the story during that, but it's like how do you survive this situation, this monster?
Hmm.
It's like a very simple construct for me, and it's like it's also set up like a joke where it's like, okay, you have your setup, and then you have your like how you handle it, and then it's like you have your punchline slash murders. It's like
Right.
okay, how do you deal with all this? So it's like again, it's like it's as a somebody who loves art and filmmaking and like figuring out what we human beings are up to. It's like
Hmm.
horror is just like okay, it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
It's
And I'm noticing
just
that
like
too. I think you're right. Like the whole thing with the quantum mania verse thing or whatever for Marvel. Like, yeah, I mean, we're getting a
it's
lot
coming
of,
up with saturation. It's like you saw it happen. If you want to take it back to comic books, it's like what was all the fucking McFarlane stuff?
right.
You
And
know what I
then
mean?
all the
Like
edgy
people
shit.
Image comics. It's like everybody will go a little too crazy for a while, and it's like whenever you hear about how like in the '60s Batman aired 2 nights a week, and it's like wow, like it really must have been so fascinating to have a color TV that you just turned on and they're kicking and powing across
Right.
it, and
You
it's
just didn't care. You just wanted to
after
see it.
yeah, and then it's like after a while, it's like the novelty wears off because they oversaturated. But I
Yeah.
don't know, it's interesting to me how like fads come and go.
Hmm.
But I think horror is like something that, again, like I'm always trying to like figure out what my specific take on or what I like about horror because
Hmm.
I don't like all horror. I don't like I said I tuned out during like
Torture porn years.
to me it was like okay, I felt like it was like a way of coping with like all the weird shit that was happening with like the Iraq war and like the harshness of like the mortgage crisis was like to me like a whole reason that like paranormal activity is like people are feeling so trapped and like obsessed with what was happening in their houses and like
Hmm.
just for a movie like Paranormal Activity to be the big thing during that era, and then like for torture porn to come out during Abu Ghraib era
Yeah.
of America. You know what I mean? Like when you look at things cyclically like that, it's like it's fascinating to me. And so it's like I always like to study cycles, and so it's like right now I've always been like, okay, the early 2020s are going to be clearly we've been in like reboot, and it's like, hey, everybody gets a reboot money. Keep on.
Yeah.
Can
I
we
mean,
reboot this reboot? How about we reboot another reboot?
look
Like
at
everybody.
look at Scream that came out 2 years ago, and they didn't even put a number after it. They called it Scream. They basically soft rebooted it, and then within another year they had a sequel because what's your face from Wednesday.
No, but that's of course. I mean, I love Jenna Ortega as much as everybody else, but it's just like I get super annoyed when I ask my TV to play me something. Again, these are such 2023 problems, but I ask my TV to play me something and I can't find the actual version that I want.
Yeah.
Because they all name the same damn thing now. It's just like, come on, man. Like, don't
Not
call
that one.
the thing also the thing when you know I want to watch
Right.
the John Carpenter thing, not the 2010 reboot, not the
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like
Like how many times do we need the movie just to be called the movie again, but then put the year on it afterwards? It's like, come on, stop. You're just being lazy.
again, it's like it's I feel like they actually are trying for customer confusion and accidental rental.
Oh yeah, it's
And
absolutely what it is.
it's the same way that like, you know, they want you to forget that you subscribe to whatever service for
Hmm.
so you can watch Yellow Jackets or whatever. It's just like, I don't know.
They're trying to
It's
work with Bank of America on the best way. Could we just not put it on their statements? Like, how do we just hide people from knowing that they have a streaming service?
I mean, again, it's fascinating to me to see like how we're all coping with this right now. And so that's why it's like how much horror entertainment do you consume a week? Like you're playing a lot of games. Like
Right.
how much time and money are we devoting to
So this is how I curb it. If you notice, a lot of the stuff that I might play might be like Marvel related or like some kind of comic booky or cartoon thing, but it has kind of a spooky element to it. So it might be like Carnage, from like Marvel stuff. So I'm still diving in, but I need that time away. I can't delve in too much with like the hardcore stuff until like I'm ready. Like you said, like you watch one Hostel movie, you're like, oh, I feel.
I like that's why I like a Lost Boys tone where it's like, hey, I get to be in a spooky world, but at the end of the day, everything's kind of fine and everybody look good.
Exactly.
Like,
That's what
on
I'm all
top, you know
about.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like, yes, we lost all the cute Lost Boys, but it's like
But we gained a
we
great
got
film.
stories are fine, and Jason Patrick and what's it called, Jamie Gertz and the mom are all fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
Oh my god. So this week I was like I was playing some audiobook on YouTube,
Hmm.
and apparently the head vampire from Lost Boys, Edward Herman, the actor from like the 80s, he was also in like Overboard and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He apparently sold his voice the same way that like Samuel Jackson sold his voice to Alexa,
Oh
or
no.
people sell their voices for like directions and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He sold his voice, so this entire book was like read by an AI program using his voice. And I
Weird.
know I had like some AI program where you could use like Gwyneth Paltrow's voice would read you a book and stuff, and I'm just like, how fast is that going to be not safe?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I saw somewhere where someone's okay. So South Park just did an episode about a thing I didn't even know about. This is how, it makes you feel like dust, how old you feel. Apparently the episode was about these kids, the South Park kids. One of the kids was in a relationship and he didn't want to keep texting his girlfriend because his girlfriend kept texting him over and over. So he found out about an app that that'll.
Yeah, GPT. Like this is the thing. It's like right now WGA, which I'm in, is like trying to like preserve the financial the financial incentives of writers in the industry, because right now like there's all these problems where they're not paying writers enough because they're claiming that they're not making enough money on projects, which is
Right.
partially true because everything's deficit financed and there's not exactly like a clear revenue stream for a lot of streaming. That's like part of the streaming wars. There's like a whole weird business thing going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other thing is that I figured out as a writer, it's like, wait a minute, writers are usually first hired, first fired. And it's like so many screenplays are written by like 20 people. I said
Mm-hmm.
20
Tinny.
people that are never credited, and they put like 2 or 3 patsies at the front of the thing. I don't know. It's just like there's so much stuff about being a writer where I was like, I need to focus on producing so I
Yeah.
can get my writing done. I need to focus on directing because that also is like something
Huge.
that will continue to exist.
Yeah.
My point is, one of the main issues that's being covered right now, and there's like a big inflammatory article about it, is like ChatGPT not being used to write screenplays. But meanwhile, I myself have been experimenting with all these different chat programs
Uh-huh.
to see what happens if you like feed it a premise and then like say, tell me a story about this movie setup. And it's like the writing I'm finding is really by the numbers and like
Sure.
not super aggressive. And there's often like big logic gaps and like, like I was using the Bard app from Google. It's like it's a test. It's like a beta testing right now
Mm-hmm.
of you ask it questions. So I asked it questions about like if I had like an Alexa camera rig and I wanted to do an overhead shot, what are the best mounts for me to use? And it gave me a very sterling answer that I was like, wow, I don't need to Google and things anymore. I don't need a Quora. Like it's just given me like the top 3 things. And like if I'm on a budget, I should use this.
Yeah.
And I showed it to a DP friend, and he immediately was like, that's a lie. That rig doesn't exist. But I love how confidently it fucking lied to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So then I like went through and I like a couple scripts that I'm writing right now. I fed the premises to chat to like Ask AI, which is like a phone app version of an AI,
Hmm.
a writing program, Bard AI, and then like another one. And I keep on just getting sort of like a basic version of my story with like a very basic 3 act structure.
Hmm.
And it's honestly, it's not great writing, but it does just sort of like give you an example of what doesn't work and what's kind of boring. So you already have like an outline. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, I don't believe in fighting the AI. I work with it. I wrote a book about sex robots. I believe that the singularity is not only coming; it's coming fast.
Yes.
Watching it, and
Man.
it's all far more interesting than I ever thought it would be. And it feels good to be here in.
Right smack dab in the middle of it.
I'm just saying, for me, this is what every day is Halloween is about. Is like, okay, right now we are talking to each other on video screens
Right.
in completely made up environments. Like you have no idea what room I'm actually in. Like my
Right.
couple here, you know what I mean? Like it's like that is a strange idea. There's
Yes.
so many ideas on top of that. And
But
it's
the
like when I see that like there's now these like mimicry programs
uh-huh.
where soon enough I could program my own app to do this for me. And then
Right.
maybe I just sit there and lay on the beach, whereas screenwriter Jill Killington, aka Bard AI, does all my writing for me.
Hmm.
I don't need to report all this to WGA. They don't need to know all this shit.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Not at all.
I'm not saying I'm a scab. I'm not saying that I'm not for collective bargaining. I want the people to survive.
Yeah.
I definitely come down on the human side of the machines versus humans.
Mhm.
However, you know, what are we fighting here? Like it's like I don't
Yeah.
know. To me it's interesting. But
Right.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
start experimenting with these programs, I spent a lot of time on Midjourney and all these AI art apps.
Uh-huh.
I'm it's and there's a new video one that starts to give you like 3 second video clips. We're moving super fast.
Yeah. Big time.
I like being able to move super fast. I always thought production was slow and stuck in the olden ways where we still were like using film mags and like moviolas and
Oh, I know.
like I'm
It
use
definitely does
moviolas.
feel like things have moved forward a lot in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? Like we were at a lull for a while.
Ever since Trump became president, it's like
We gotta get out of
love
this.
hate it, whatever.
Yeah.
It's been a whole different chapter in America as far as I'm concerned. We're into like I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a wild. Everything's been wild. Like it's
Yeah.
like
That
everything closed
2020,
up.
2021, everybody being in their house for almost an entire year. That's a lot of time for people to devote to something that they just kind of want to work on. And I think we're just building off of that year.
Everybody started like getting into all kinds of side missions.
Right. Side missions. Yep.
It's very interesting what we've all become over the course of this. It's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see where all this stuff is going. But yeah, so you come at this from a place of true fandom. That is what
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
understanding.
I think I try to. Everybody knows about all the big movies that are coming out, right? That's a given. You can go to any website or go to YouTube and see all the trailers for that. But I think it's really interesting. Like since I work at the comic book store weekly, I'm getting bits of scripts, right? Bits of scripts are coming out weekly from horror writers that are coming up with their own stuff. And like that's what a lot of, if a horror comic does well, Netflix just picks it up and turns it into a TV show or, a movie or whatever. So you're like that's the beginning of new ideas that are, nobody's really seen or is talking about. And it's kind of insane to me that like I'll go on Twitter and I'll post like about this new horror book coming out and it barely gets any movement because people just don't know about it. But I want to let people know about these cool things. There's so many other avenues of horror that I feel like people kind of forget about. Novels and,
Well, I
different
mean, again, it's
bands.
like it's interesting how everything is like is in my what I've learned. Again, I've lived in Hollywood for quite some time now,
Hmm.
but it seems to be true of the world that it's like things are financially driven. It's like a horror comic takes a while to take off. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like unless you do get like a 30 Days of Night that like gets a really good director and a pretty splashy movie, it's like how do you stand out? Who's gonna champion? Like you're right. Like, is there a giant champion of horror comics right now? Is that you?
I'm trying. I mean, I see that there are guys out there, and they'll like read you comic books. They'll on stream. They'll sit there and read like X-Men and stuff.
I didn't realize I'm like, okay, if I want to sell like books, I need to probably sit there and read from my own fucking book. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like a very busy time, and like getting people's attention. It's interesting how it works. You know what I mean? It's
yes, and you can't sacrifice your time for creating your art to do that. Now, I get that social media, you have to do it, but like some people, I think, devote so much time to being in the social media face that they don't devote it towards their craft. Does that make sense?
yeah. Oh, it totally makes sense. I mean, for me, it's social media. I like being able to talk to a large group of my friends at once. Like that's what I enjoy about it. I like
Discord.
opinions from people far away. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like from all over the world, like hearing different horror fans kind of stuff. Like we all have the same affinities. But yeah, like I'm not so much I don't like to post my meals. I don't like to post everywhere I go or like a lot
What's
of my
your
friends
fit
are
today?
private, and some of my friends are like more influencer style people where they're like love to be posted and everything. And so it's like I post those people, but it's like so many of my friends would not understand, like, hey, like I'm trying to get better about like, oh, we should really take a selfie, you know, like just to
capture the
commemorate
moment.
yeah, but it's like most people, I don't know, a lot of my friends don't want to deal with all that. They don't need the likes because we have the likes. And
Right.
I like that aspect of things where it's like, oh, some things are offline and some things are online, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like my Instagram, I try to like anytime I go out to do like a big event on like a weekend, I like to have like one thing that just captured that moment, right? One picture with everybody that I had a good time, and that like I don't need to take 1,400 different photos and things like that. It's just kind of that's the one moment. And I kind of like that. But I mean, everybody's different with their social stuff. It's that whole aspect of life is interesting. But yeah, horror transcends in so many different ways throughout. And I think right now we're hitting this cute horror aspect thing where we're getting a lot of what was the one when Nick Cage fights a bunch of furries in a
yeah, what not is that I forget, Last Night or whatever. It's the one where he's just drinking the pops.
yeah, Willy's
like,
Wonderland, I think it's called.
there you go, Wonderland.
Yeah, so like I think people like it's a good way. It's kind of like, and again, we're not going to say girl to undermine anybody as a gender, but a guy trying to get his girlfriend, this is what you'd say back in the 90s, to watch a spooky movie, if it had a cute element to it, she'd be more down to watch it, kind of thing, right? So now it's
like I liked watching the Evil Dead movies because Ash himself was attractive. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
like,
Then it's a totally different aspect.
Yeah, and it's like, or like a lot of my friends love like Devon Sawa, kind of stuff. Like either now that he's like on Chucky, or he's back in the day when he was
Casper's boyfriend or Casper.
yeah, Final Destination and all that stuff. It's like everybody has to have their interest,
right?
You gotta have your draw in.
But I've seen so we sell a lot of Japanese manga at the store, and I'm noticing a lot of these mangas coming out that are looking more edgy and dark and gory and spooky, but the characters are saying really cute things. So it's like this dark edge with like a cute kind of bubbly side to it. And
okay, so speaking of this, I'm wearing. Oh, can you even see my T-shirt? Is this gonna happen?
Oh, yeah.
This was like a super popular bootleg shirt that I kept on seeing. Like every time I went to Halloween Horror Nights last year, either in LA or Orlando, because I'm that kind of fan.
She doing both.
A super fan who has to compare both.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of shirts like this that make like horror cute now. And there's also like all these like sort of like horror babies where it's like a baby Cenobite next to a baby It.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all hanging out in like the nursery, like Muppet babies. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I make money off of this as me? You know what I mean? It's like I see all people making little cute dresses out of this, but that's not my business. My business should maybe be to pitch Cenobabies.
Yeah. And
like I could be the asshole who makes money off of that. Where it's like, yeah, you're swimming in the Cenobaby swimming pool.
Man. Well, so I think we talked about this. IB Trav, the artist, He did. He has. It's like Muppet Babies, but it's horror babies, and it's different characters from horror, but they like do kind of like. But he's drawn it out and stuff. You just got to work right around that whole copyright thing, so you don't get in trouble.
Sure.
But I think right now, I just had something in my head that was there's a lot of Terrifier, right? Someone asked me recently on like a little Instagram thing, like, what's a popular horror franchise that you don't really like? And I had to think about it hard for a second. I was like, honestly, I don't really care for the Terrifier films. I think the what they did with those things are great. I think Art's a cool character. It's actually from like a few defunct horror films before that, called Trick or Treat or All Hallows Eve, and like another one. But like, I just don't like, again, it's like the torture porn kind of thing. It just goes a little too far, and just kind of like, it's just doing it to do it.
Like, some people love A24, some people love Blumhouse. It's like everybody has their taste. There's enough room under the umbrella, apparently.
Right. But I think that does that thing, right? Terrifier does that thing where you have Art being super coy and like wiggling his fingers at somebody that's like across the way, and they're kind of like wiggle. So it's cute. But there's that horror edge where he's going to saw somebody in half naked upside down. Like,
yeah, like the tone of Freddy Krueger has always been like a debatable thing with people. Like, or for me, I really enjoy him because he's like horror Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
And that's where I get down. And it's like, there's something about like the fact that he comes in your nightmares and you fall asleep and he gets you there. And like the fingernails, there's just so many like weird elemental things about him that I really.
Wes nailed it with that. That whole concept, I feel like it can't be topped,
Yeah, and there's something about like Robert Englund's casting. It's just like there's enough things about it that are really interesting.
Yeah, even that poster, like the way Freddy looks, he looks half like a skeleton face. There just is something that's like, okay, he feels like a boogeyman you recognize the first time you see him. You understand what he is. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel like at clowns. It's just like there's such an easy, like, some people like just do not fuck with clowns the same way people don't fuck with snakes. Right.
It's like if you do an anaconda really well, you're gonna make money. If you do like an It or a Terrifier well, you're gonna make money. Like people have certain inborn fears that if you just like trigger it, you're gonna
oh yeah money. There was a house at Howling Horror Nights last year that was like bugs, like bug infestation or whatever. I think it was called Infestation, and like all like my horror night friends that were just like super stoked to go and stuff, and I was like, oh, do you guys want this house? It was just like a straight nope, I did it once, I'll never go back in that house again. It was like people would just write off that house because it would just disturb them on so many levels. But it also had that thing where, that phobia with the holes, where like he shows like a picture of someone's thumb and has little holes in it. So it was like the bug house. You had bugs, and then you had those like hive mind holes in people's faces and stuff. And yeah, you're just hitting phobias that freak people out a little too much.
Like there's one at like Not Scary Farm that had like, I don't know, like a lot of like organ parts. It's like the inside of mouths and eyeballs. Ugh. And there's just something, you know what I mean? Like it's just like anything too dental or too orificey. It's just like when you watch the movie Alien, it's like, okay, this looks so otherworldly, but also intestinal and genitalia and like reptilian. Just like it hits so many nightmares at once.
Oh yeah.
Or it's like The Last of Us. It's like something about the mushrooms, like it does remind us of spores, and like just like there's a
fungi.
Natural revulsion. Like the people are repulsed by spiders or love them. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting to me how like everybody has their own flavor. Like the other fascinating thing to me is like the number of people who do not ever want to watch a horror movie that I talk to, where they're like, I'll never watch one of your things.
Yeah.
I will never. And I'm like, that's totally fine.
Sure.
I don't watch sports. I don't give a shit about sports. You know what I mean? Like we all have our lanes that like we just will never go down. It's like I've never cared about Bridesmaids. You know what I mean? Like it's like we all have our lanes.
Right.
But yeah, it's just fascinating to me because it's like, well, you enjoy roller coasters, so you do enjoy being scared. But then again, some people want like only a very baseline existence.
Right. Yeah. Some people don't like gore, but they love spooky ghost stories, So.
Yeah. So I have this. It's called How Well Do You Know Me? I have a lot of different like cards because I find them to be interesting little prompts.
Cool.
And what I was looking through, I was like, oh, what is an interesting prompt to ask you? And I got here, do you believe in ghosts?
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I think there's too much energy in our shells, our cores, to just not have something that leaves whenever like something happens and it strikes you, and uh you have a lot more life to give the world, and when that's just taken away in an instant for whatever reason, I feel like that lingers somewhere, somehow. I don't know how, whether it's a in the walls of a room or part of an object or something, but I feel like it's like not everybody, right? Like some people know they're going to die or they're dying of cancer and they kind of come to terms with it. And they feel like they can let their soul be go wherever it goes. But I feel like the ones that have, strong, passionate, just everyday life and it's stripped away in an instant, I feel like that energy lingers somewhere. What about you?
I question the nature of perception and the way that we perceive the world through our five senses. Is that the end of sensation and perception? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I wonder if you were to perceive the world using different organs, what would you see? And perhaps you would perceive different times happening all at once. Perhaps you would see, again, getting back to Quantum Mania, different timelines happening.
Yeah.
Maybe again, I don't know what ghosts are. It's
Right.
interesting to me how one of my fascinations, like I do a lot of studying of like um religious and supernatural beliefs and occult beliefs around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many myths that go to every culture. Every culture has a weird variation on a ghost, especially like number one, ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, vampire. It's like werewolf, you start to think like, okay, this is probably just somebody who's a little bit more savage than everybody else. It's like maybe even the same thing with a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Bigfoot could easily be the print of a bear, and it's like, how come we haven't found him by now if he's not real, or
Mm-hmm.
if he is real? But you know what I'm saying? It's like there, but ghosts are so universal that you have to wonder. And it's like, how, if there were supernatural beings, how easy would it be to hide among us? I don't know. I have a lot of questions about the world. So that's why I
Yeah.
ask a lot of questions about the world to
Sure.
other people. Because again, it's like a forum to talk about these things with horror fans, where it's like, like literally the talking to horror fans and being like, okay, are you religious? Do you believe in ghosts? And like so much of the world is very Judeo-Christian, and
Mm-hmm.
so every time there's like a new possession or exorcist kind of movie that comes out, it usually does really well
Yeah.
because like giving voice and screen time to something that people feel every day in their lives. I don't know, it's just
Midnight Mass.
I'm but yeah, ghosts, I believe in them. I don't fuck with them. I'll tell you that
Right.
much.
I'm not trying to stir the pot.
You know what I mean? I liked a Ouija board when I was a kid. I still think they're fun. I don't fuck around too much with like things I don't want to fuck with.
Yeah.
Um, how about a happier question? If you were a superhero, who would you be?
Hmm. I don't know. I guess Wolverine's pretty cool because he can't die. I like that whole immortality thing. I guess was it is
One where he was kept in cement forever. That sounded really crappy.
Oh fuck, I didn't hear about that one.
Uh,
Jesus. All right,
Yeah,
so
you
yeah,
know
that
what I
would
mean? Like,
suck.
they just left him there. Like that's whenever it's like you get into the idea. I remember there was like some EC comic I read where it's just like somebody had been chopped to bits so much that they were just basically like vomit on the floor that was like writhing around.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, would it hurt? Could you feel anything? Like those kind of like little horror things, like the existential nature of horror will
Yeah.
sometimes just like fuck me up.
Right. Yeah, I feel like the pain would have happened so often that yeah, your little mush little pieces wouldn't really feel anything. But you'd still be cautious.
Cool. It's like, oh, it's cool how he keeps on surviving everything, but it's like they make it clear that it's like it takes a toll on the guy. Gotta
Right.
make jokes through this shit because it's awful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm afraid about being alive forever. Flying would be neat, I guess. I don't know. What about you? What would your superpower be or superhero?
I love Batman, and I think the reason I like Batman is because he's achievable, and like
Yeah.
it teaches everybody how to deal with tragedy. I mean, terribly. Like he's a really poorly adjusted person.
Yeah.
But it's still like exploring like, okay, what childhood triggers drove you to become what you are.
Hmm.
Like that's what I really enjoyed about the Battinson version that just came out. It was just like, okay, they're really exploring how deeply fucked up this man is. Like
Right. We
he's
get,
a case study, you know? Like
yeah.
he's like an absolute nightmare. It's like again, I enjoy every iteration of Batman, whether he's
Uh-huh.
got like Schumacher nipples, whether it's Adam West. It's like I will take a Clooney and
Yeah.
Kilmer. Every Batman's a delicious Batman to me. But yeah, there's something about the Battinson really getting into like, okay, this is super twisted. This is fetishistic and twisted for him to be Batman.
Big
But yeah,
time.
I like Batman. I think Batman's cool. And then just for funsies, I guess Deadpool's also funny, but again, it's what we just discussed, like the having to respawn over and over and get up in
Yeah.
this like horrible mangled state. It's not cute.
And he's dying all the time too. Imagine dying from cancer all the time.
You know, it's again, it's like that's a genre I like to call like I'm glad it's not me. Like it makes you kind of appreciate your own life.
Right. Yeah.
You know, when you're watching something, you're like, oh man, I'm so glad I didn't get set on fire a bunch of times a day. You know,
Right.
like shot and have to spit out the bullets a bunch of times.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, yeah, there's a whole thing with horror and the fact like so I always come back to this, right? Because people ask me this a lot and I think about it all the time. I feel like horror fans like horror because they're embracing death in a different way. Like they know the inevitable is coming at some point and they're afraid of it. They don't know how to cope with it. So they will ingest it as much as possible. Like everybody watches horror in different ways, but I feel like a lot of it has to do with like, why do you enjoy watching slashers kill these teenagers? Like that's where your friends that say like, I'll never watch anything that you make. Like that's how they see it. Why would you want to watch these teenagers get slaughtered by these like killers? And for us, I think it's just like, well, I just like seeing the different scenarios that people come up with, the fun writing that the outcome of it. And yeah, people are being killed throughout it, but it's it's fake, it's entertainment. But do you feel like there's an itch that, helps people that are afraid of death?
I think it's definitely like it's a way of dealing with mortality and just all the unknowns in life. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many rigid rules in the world, but like as we found, like they're constantly broken. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like to have I feel like that's so much of what story does is it's like okay, you understand the rules of this plot and that there's going to be some sort of resolution. Whereas, like in life, there isn't like usually like a big season arc or like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like
Yeah.
there can be if you are aware enough of your own story and how to drive it. But I'm just
Mhm.
saying it's just like things are neater in movies and shows. And I think that's the appeal. Like, it's like, I feel like, Friends.
Yeah.
Friends is pretty like by the numbers programming,
Yeah.
but it's like the concept of friends that you can just go click on and they're there for you.
Right.
And then like the 22 minutes of nothing that bad's gonna happen is very reassuring for people. Whereas like for horror, it's like the opposite, where it's like, oh, something terrible is gonna happen during this.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the important thing is it's not happening to you.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably going to be like artfully shot, and maybe you're going to get something out of it. Maybe you're going to have some sort of like transcendent spark. Maybe you'll have an epiphany.
Yeah.
It's we're all kind of like looking for is like searching for like meaning in ourselves as we're looking at art. I don't know. I spent a lot of time like trying to figure out what is the appeal of horror. So
Okay.
that's why I asked. Okay, last question.
All right.
What accomplishment are you most proud of?
Ooh, what accomplishment am I most proud of? I think, man, I might say this. Is that weird? Like building a community of horror fans that like talking about this kind of stuff and having an outlet to talk about it, but then also have people that, are on the official level of, the people that send you movies or things like that actually want to indulge that. Like I got a pass to MegaCon for next weekend, and it's like, that's how cool is that? Like they want you to be there to check these things out and report back. And I just think that's kind of like, as a teenager, I just never thought that would be a thing, right? Like I can be in my 20s and 30s and have these people be like, here's movies, here's things, like please talk about them, promote us. And that's like a huge accomplishment for me. Other than being in a band, I was a singer in a horror rock band for 6 years. That was pretty cool. That was a fun accomplishment. So how about yourself?
I think for me, I wrote a book, and that was a game changer for me. It was like setting my mind to do something that, like, okay, because I was trying to be a screenwriter all along, and realizing that, like, okay, a screenplay is something you have to compromise on so many times or raise the money to do.
Yeah.
And I was having problems with those sort of things. And so I was like, okay, let me write a book. And this will be something that, like, I can have that will just be entirely my voice and my thoughts, and like no budget limits, no shooting limits. It's like this, the only limits are within my imagination and what I'm able to verbalize
Yeah.
on the page and make real on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a book about sex robots called Nymph, and that is like
Yeah.
my proudest accomplishment, even though it's made me the least money so far. But I we'll see how things pan out over the course of time, because the sex robots are on the
Yeah.
way.
Well, that's the thing, though. I think that, you know, you see the treasure within that, right? Like you made that thing come to life. Like you said, there was no barriers or walls. It was just everything that you put out there.
It's like who you become when you're trying to do something. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you started out as like the horror guy that people already recognize that you're like the horror guy. Like you had some expertise, and like you figured out how to continue that as a community and
Yeah.
a way to benefit yourself. And it's like, for me, starting and figuring out how to tell the story that I wanted to tell without anybody else interrupting it or like too much other input
Yeah.
was a good exercise for me. And then it's like, after that, it's like I could write anything. It's like I've written all kinds of ad copy and reality shows and screenplays and episodes and movies and skits and like fucking fake song lyrics for commercial jingles.
Did
you
you
know what I
do
mean?
that?
It's just like, okay, everything is a thing that you can just, if you know how to complete one thing, you can complete another thing, was sort of like where it worked out for me.
It just kind of helps you, right? Like, well, I'm sure writing that book, like kind of like you said, kind of paves your path.
Yeah, any endeavor that you take on, it's just like, it's, you got to do it for yourself to a certain degree. So that's that for me is probably like a foundational achievement for me.
All right. So last question, should I get a sex robot? Is that a smart thing to do?
Not at this point. They're creepy. Like there's like the way, like, you remember when Ghost in the Shell came out a few years ago, and like everybody was like talking so much trash about Scarlett Johansson for starring in that movie, and you know, basically such whitewashing. Whereas like in the cartoons and comics, I wasn't really clear what race Major was anyway. I don't care about race that much, or gender. I don't care. I care about ideas. My point is, for me, I was like, Scarlett Johansson's one of the few people on this earth who's already had a animatronic created of her. You know, like at the time that movie came out, like somebody, I forget who it was like some creepy super fan animator, I'm sorry, somebody who creates animatronics made a very uncanny valley, but a rendering of her that was a machine. And it's like, for her, you know what I mean? Like, it's like for her to just like go on the internet one day and look at it same as I did, but be like, that's me, and this creepy ass dude made it for reasons I don't entirely want to know. And it's like, you know, then the script comes for Ghost in the Shell, and she's like, yeah, I probably have something to say about this. I thought about this.
Right. Did you click on a link and get the idea to cast me in this? Like,
I would say the movie's not great. It's like, it could be better. There's some great sequences in it. It was very studio interference. But there's some moments in there where I'm just like, man, like this, her being a sex robot that has already existed on our plane of existence.
Right. It's too meta, you know?
Yeah, the world is getting so meta so fast. I like to discuss it. And just like, okay, how meta are things over there with you, you know? Yeah,
you posted that thing of all the four-legged dog robots all kind of dancing and shift moments. I was like, man, this is, I don't know.
It's all getting very, very weird. Like, do you have robots in Orlando?
I think there's like one or two restaurants that have like the serving ones that just take you to the table.
downtown. You're right. In downtown. Oh, no, you're talking about like the ones that they have at like, I've seen them at TGI Fridays and places like that. No,
Yeah.
in LA, there's actually like small delivery robots
Hmm.
that like basically like they're like a cooler that like locks and unlocks according to like when they've reached their delivery destination.
Yeah.
But they'll be like rolling up and down the streets, as well as like a lot of like security robots that look like the old 50s Lost in Space robot, where it's basically like an egg-shaped rolling device that rolls around LA.
The streets
And
of LA?
yeah, it's literally on the sidewalks and streets of LA, and it's
Wow.
sort of, I think it's like a deterrent for homelessness and people who are sleeping on the sidewalk. I think it's meant to creep out people who are already, you
Sure.
know, mentally vulnerable.
Uh-huh.
And it fucking works because it's like it's a robot that just, and I'll do things when I'll see one on the street, I'll like try to like just walk up to it and see if it'll like jam into me and stuff. But it's like so far no one's they've known to steer clear of me and obey the 3 laws.
So what stops a homeless guy from just like pushing it into the road or peeing on it?
I'm sure that they have, but it's like somebody, again, I don't know how the investment process, I don't know who the company is that's
Yeah.
like sitting in the omnicore of like these fucking robots and issuing them to the city of Los Angeles. But it's like I promise you, I'll just be driving around and be like, okay, there's a robot in front of that hospital. It's like, okay, I'm over at the New Bev watching a movie, and like there's a robot just like roving right by on Beverly Boulevard.
And people will be walking on the sidewalk and they just kind of walk on the side and let it pass kind of thing.
It's literally like as if a shopping cart like rolled past you. It's like
It's crazy.
about the size of like a baby bassinet or something, like the smaller delivery robots.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, just like every day is definitely Halloween, and the fact that every store that closes in America becomes a spirit Halloween.
Right. The fact that we're slowly taking over. Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's just like there's a lot to discuss here. So that's why I'm like, tell me what everything is every day's Halloween means to you. It's like that's what I want to hear from people. I'm just like,
Yeah.
Halloween is the world. How much are you feeling this every day is Halloween thing?
Yeah. No, it's funny now that, okay, so now that we're at the end of the episode and we've talked about this, I feel like I need another episode to then go in more into depth than just like, oh, I like spooky stuff. Because you're right. There's a whole thing going on right now that, yeah, every day is kind of weirdly becoming Halloween.
I mean, it just genuinely is like, it's like, okay, we're coming out of a pandemic, which is like a weird ass dystopian thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the metaverse is being built. That's a weird ass dystopian thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's so many horror movies, there's so much true crime popularity, there's so many Ghost Hunter and Crypto Hunter and like all these shows.
Mm-hmm.
More and more we're getting proof of some sort of alien stuff going on, or at least suggestions of UFOs in mainstream media.
Oh, yeah.
Shit,
Right now with the whole weather balloon thing and stuff.
it is wild. Like it's like
Yeah.
what is going on, and like how much of this is entertainment versus like just plain old spooky, creepy, weird is what's interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I have this show. I'm glad to have you as a co-host so we can talk more and delve more into this in future episodes.
Yes.
It's been super fun. We're going to meet up next weekend, go to MegaCon.
I think probably on Saturday is what I'm looking at. I have to figure out my travel plan still. Things have been a mess, but
Yeah.
Most likely Saturday will be the day.
Cool. All right. Well, all Saturday.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell me like what happens there, because I really, all I expect is a lot of cosplay, and I'm like, how hot is it in Orlando right now? Is it going to be possible to cosplay? Is it going to be crazy?
Oh yeah, it's all in the convention center, so it's very AC, but yeah, it's still super hot here. So
I'll figure these things out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good talking to you. Happy Friday.
Yeah.
I hope you have a good weekend. and
Happy
everybody else-
Halloween Friday. By the way, in chat, I just want to say there's a few people.
Every day is Halloween.
That's right. A few people came in. Egon02 said, "Oh my God, Jill, I thought you died. I'm so happy to see you. What the fuck? Your ass back on YouTube, girl." So some fans. Infinite Sky.
I don't really have fans. I have friends. I probably know Egon on some level. So
Yeah. Infinite Sky says, "Howdy." Eric Preston says, "Jill learned nothing from Ed 209 ...
See, I did learn something. I did indeed, and but again, it's like these are not armed bots. These are like literally armless, weaponless bots. So it's
Right. Yeah. We're okay for right now for the custodian one.
I would definitely not be. I would not be as confrontational.
Yeah. Just start getting worried when they start adding more limbs to these things.
When they do the spider crawl, I'm not playing with it. I don't like. I'm not a big fan of the DARPA doggy type robots either.
Yeah.
I like them. I like Asimos. I like those. I like their cute little ways.
They have. I don't like so it's the doggy ones where they take the shoe and they push, like they kick it and it kind of like falls to the side, but it doesn't tip over. It always kind of stays.
Like the four-legged ones that
Yeah.
like are really, really fast and like sometimes they can do like backflips and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm like, I don't understand exactly the application of this. It's like, I guess it could carry a backpack into a very, like a, again, it's just like, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. I've
All
seen
certain things being invented.
Yeah, the most recent one I saw was like the one, have you seen? It's like a full guy and he's doing like an obstacle course and he does like a backflip and a front flip and they like, kneels down, gets up. Like they can do full things now. It's kind of nuts.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like the fact that there's just like free roaming robots in major cities in America right now. Just like, okay, like, we have somewhat self-driving cars. I'm just saying, it's like we discuss these things. I need a therapy group sometime.
And I'm here to help you.
Spookies. It's like, okay, are we in a chopping mall? Which franchise am I in? It's like it really is the Scream thing. It's like you can't pick your genre. It's like, no, I'm trying to pick my genre. I like a fun, scary.
Yes.
Lost Boys is my maximum actual lifetime, like how much scare I want to deal with.
Okay.
And even that's too much. I don't want flying long-haired guys. Like
I was gonna say, there's parts of that movie are spooky.
Are you flying? Like, well, if we go to MegaCon and you were like floating around,
You're
I'd
out.
be like, peace. Like, I gotta go, man. Like, I'm not down with this floating shit that you're doing. I'm not gonna hang out at this bridge with you and drink blood right now. I'm not into it.
The long hair was your warning, okay?
Yeah, oh shit, I don't think I have seen you in daylight.
Okay. Oh, you haven't? That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, Saturday we'll meet on daylight.
It'll be the test. Yeah. All right, Jill, it's good talking with you. We'll do another episode. Obviously, we won't have one next Friday because we'll be all getting ready for MegaCon, but we'll definitely have some coverage on it for you guys the following Friday. So, all right.
We'll have delay. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.